My name is Neil Chauhan, and I'm the Director of VDC Services here at EllisDon. I will be your moderator for today's discussion, and the discussion will be pertaining to the role of digital twins in the infrastructure industry. Without further ado, I will introduce our panel of esteemed professionals here that have experience in the digital twins for infrastructure arena. First and foremost, Vince Gattola of Dassault Systems. I'll let everyone introduce themselves, and then we can get started.
Do you want me to start there, Neil?
Yes, please, Vince.
Well, hello, everyone. Neil, thanks for doing this. This is much appreciated. So my name is Vince Gattola. I am from Dassault Systems. Now 4 years plus with Dassault. I'm based out of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I am the North American lead for our AC, Civil and Infrastructure, Cities and Public Services Technical Sales Group. Previous to Dassault, I spent over 25 years plus with industry experience, always technology focused, implementation focused, primarily in heavy civil infrastructure such as the hydropower sector and the railway and transportation sector as well. Nice to be here.
Thanks. Naman Patwari of Pinnacle Infotech.
Hey, Neil. Thank you. Hey, my name is Naman. I work at Pinnacle Infotech, and I'm the head of automation here. I've been with Pinnacle for a little bit over 2 years. My background is software engineering. I used to work at Amazon before I joined Pinnacle. I decided to join the construction industry because software is everywhere. And I just felt construction was an industry where I could make the biggest impact. My goal in life is to build a house on the moon. And at Pinnacle, I'm currently working on creating a lot of automation software to streamline VDC workflows. And for the past year and a half, I've been working a lot on digital twin implementations for facilities and infrastructures per se. I'm really looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you.
And last but not least, Bill Wright of R-E-A-L.iT.
Thanks, Neil. You guys can hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. My name is Bill Wright. I'm not sure what this light is happening above me here. I'm actually at the Ontario Land Surveyors event in London, Ontario right now, and they're able to put me into a big event space, so I don't know where to go. It's on me. But yeah, so my name is Bill Wright. I've been in the industry for 20 years in the BIM space, Autodesk reseller channel for a lot of years, and now in the scanning reselling channel. So a lot of experience in BIM, VDC, digital twin, integration with Autodesk and other software such as that. I'm now on the Leica side. So just been here for a while and looking forward to the chat today.
Great. Thanks, everyone. And just a little bit about myself as well. As director here at EllisDon for VDC Services, I am basically running the consulting arm of our VDC sector here at EllisDon, alongside Patrick Hollande, who is our director of VDC operations. He is plugged into the core business, and so in the industry of VDC, I've been in it for about 10 years now, and in various channels, sales, conventional sales, as well as consulting and services for VDC. Without further ado, also, we will get our discussion started. So I think we can, start with a conversational question of just, I'll ask the entire group. I think this is an important question to maybe start off with, is that how would you define the term digital twin, and how would you define it as it relates to infrastructural projects?
I can start, Neil, if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. So, as we know, we seek to identify digital twins representing the physical objects in 3D. That's pretty much what we're hearing everywhere, and merely a prototype that focuses, on one specific physical object. Certain cases, an infrastructure project, an infrastructure product structure, etc. If I'm taking project scope deliverables and an orientation, well, the digital twin is what we are developing first conceptually, and then detailed, defined by its product structure and the work breakdown structure, and delivered to construction to eventually represent the as-built for an infrastructure. I would take it that way. But so I have to say, us at Dassault Systems Solutions help bring the models to life, but we go further by offering a virtual twin. So it's not just about the BIM modeling in this case, but so we see the digital twin now evolving towards a virtual twin experience that lets you visualize, model, and also simulate, the entire environment of sophisticated experiences, right? So they facilitate sustainable business innovations across the full product lifecycle. That's key for us. Simulations are run on a virtual model in our case, right? To explore how the product will behave when assembled, operated, and subject to a range of events moving forward. So yeah, that's my
awesome. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think we have a healthy mix here of folks who are involved in digital twinning, let's say, from project onset, if it's reality capture, if it's capturing an existing system, there's the BIM side for proposed, and then downstream. So anybody else would like to discuss their definition of a digital twin for infrastructure?
Yep. I would like to add in here. So we've been debating a lot internally about what a digital twin is, both internally and with our clients. And we kind of came up with this definition per se, where we kind of define digital twin as a platform that draws inferences between three different kinds of data. One is the virtual twin, which represents the physical asset in a digital capacity, be it the geometry, the asset location, everything, the BIM model per se, just like how Vince is saying. But then we came up with two other data categories, namely the service twin and the sensor twin. Where the service twin talks about what are all the different asset information we have about the facility, what chillers we have, what UPSs, whatever you name it, any assets that are critical to operations. What do we have? The O&M manuals? Do we have the checklist? Do we have everything about the asset that is generally given during handoff? And then sensor twin talks about what dynamic data do I have about these assets? Do I have BMS sensors? Do I have IoT sensors? And a digital twin essentially becomes a platform that combines data from these three twins to make business intelligence. So when we talk about predictive maintenance, it's basically making sense of the sensor twin data, figuring out which asset it's talking about and what it's telling us about the asset, and then looking it up on the physical twin to see, are other assets affected? Where is that asset located? And then letting the maintenance team know or the operations team know what actions to take, per se.
Right on.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I'm coming at maybe digital twin from a different standpoint when it comes to existing infrastructure, capturing that data. So a lot of cities, municipalities, governments, they have outdated data, right? Manhole locations, information throughout the city that they currently just don't have that information internally. It's probably on paper in a filing cabinet somewhere. So for me, it's how do we mobile map and kind of capture the entire city. Maybe it's the subway stations, the tunnels, the roadways above ground, below ground. Maybe it's a rural area, when it comes to telecommunications and above wires. And then how do you get all that into what you guys are talking about, the asset, the information, the IoT sensors later on? I picture it being able to capture all this data, whether it's in a point cloud, and then whether it's converted to a 3D model later on and or as it progresses. The other important part about a digital twin is how do you go back and recapture some of that information? So, the projects ever evolve 5-6 years from now, you have to go back and kind of capture that information, get it into an as-built state, on a recurring basis at the end of the day. So that's kind of where I'm coming at it from, being able to be in a boardroom and click any street, any location, a bridge, see the seismic information of that bridge. Has that bridge moved in the last 2 or 3 years by continually doing mobile mapping solutions and kind of bring that digital twin in-house? Safety is obviously important. And I think the ability to capture that data is going to be a lot quicker in the reality capture space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so now I think that since both a few of your panelists have already mentioned IoT, in what ways do you see this integration of digital twinning with other emerging technologies such as IoT or, let's say, AI?
Anybody go?
Yeah, that one might be having some.
Yeah, he may have some problems.
Yeah.
We lost him.
I think for my
Go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
No, I was just thinking like on an aspect of the bridges, for example, like a bridge or tunnels and having sensors in there, and then being able to kind of run a predictive analysis, AI kind of, maybe reading those sensors and informing you if there's going to be any issues ahead of time, right? I always, I look at the Gardner Expressway in Toronto and there's cracks everywhere. And, how can we find out more information of, will that fail or could it fail in the future? If there's a lot of sensors and we can read that information and AI can kind of predict it ahead of time,
Right.
that might be definitely beneficial. But Vince, you might have something else there for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the work that you're doing is totally necessary because we need to model the existing conditions, right? And so the existing conditions, by applying data that's real life data, IoT and sensors, it kind of changes the way we need to treat any refurbishments. In this case, the same thing goes for any heavy infrastructure. So by applying sensors and making it actionable, transactable, the data is actionable, transactable within our platform. We're calling it the common data environment or a unified intelligent. It kind of brings all the data to life, right? We know exactly the performance, the health performance of an asset moving forward. I think we still need to learn a lot about how to control those assets moving forward, but it does spin off from the reality capture of things. It does, the virtual twin and how it lives, and it's shared to stakeholders and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Right on. Yeah, Naman, welcome back. Yeah, I don't know if you heard the question, but I can repeat. I mean, in what ways do you see the integration of digital twins with other emerging technologies such as IoT or AI? So if we're looking at sensors and or predictive kind of initiatives related to digital twinning and infrastructure, how would you see that?
Absolutely. So for us, when it comes to digital twins, we feel IoT makes a huge impact. So much so that we named one of the twins, the sensor twin, about IoTs and BMS data. All the projects that I've been involved with about delivering digital twins start with the client goals. At the end of the day, clients just don't want digital twins. They want digital twins to solve a problem. They have a couple of business use cases that require a lot of measurement, a lot of analytics. And then the dynamic real-time data plays a huge role in achieving those missions. Right. So I'm recently, so I'm actually at a digital twin conference in Dubai, where we just helped a client do a POC for a digital twin for an infrastructure project. And they had some pretty unique cases about hey, I want to measure escalators and how fast and the performance about escalators. And we had to come up with pretty novel ways of using different kind of sensors to achieve the goal that the client was looking for at the end of the day. So we went and we worked on some sensors that can look at the teeth gap between escalators, because that played a huge part in some of the missions the client was trying to work on. So that's what I love about sensors. The sky's the limit. It's really limited to your imagination. There are thousands of kind of sensors out there, and it's up to you to come up with ways to use it to collect the data to achieve the client's missions. And then if I talk about AI, it's really important, right? At the end of the day, AI is just pattern recognition with steroids, right? So we want to be able to harness pattern recognition technology in a way with least human input, and it can find patterns between data to draw inferences that again helps the clients achieve their missions for why they wanted a digital twin in the first place.
Great. Yeah. No, that's interesting that you say that. Purpose-driven, the mission of the end user. I think that's a very important distinction to make. And then it comes to mind talking about, let's say, standardization of the term digital twin when it comes to infrastructure, like here in our discussion here. How would you see, in the next short to long term, the regulations evolving and standardization of such initiatives? I'll ask this one to Vince. Yeah.
So you mean standardization with respect to, us delivering projects, moving forward with digital infrastructures for digital twins?
Yeah,
or,
in terms of like mandates, let's say if we're talking about purpose-driven initiatives, this does have to come from the top down. And so
yeah, I'd love to see them, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to see them first and foremost. I think in Canada, we're making strides. The US is kind of slightly behind in standardization, but it's not just about BIM standards. And now you're talking about a different level of what we need to deliver. You look at the UK and what they've done since 2008 and how they've standardized, the idea of digital twins and how digital twins should be used on projects. The same thing is occurring in our neck of the woods in my Montreal area, where we've got this route that's going to enable, standardization. So I would say with respect to that, I think it's key. We need to move ahead. We need to continue inspiring because we're not there. I mean, this is my opinion, but, I'll leave it to Naman and Bill as well to digress.
Yeah. How would you guys see it in the short and long term?
Yeah. See, the way I look at it, like we have LEED certifications that talks about how the building was constructed. You get it during the building inauguration and then it's done. What I'm really hoping for that we see in the next 2-3 years is some sort of LEED certification that you have to renew every year. Like the government comes up and says, give me these data points about how your building operated in the last year. And here's a certificate saying that, okay, you were net zero in energy or whatever the government criteria might be. So rather than enforcing what a digital twin would look like, what I'm hoping for, the government says, here's a certificate, show me this data. If these matches this criteria, we're going to give you a certificate that is valid for another year. And then prove to me that that data is actually accurate. So that's where I'm hoping the government and standardization comes in, is rather than worrying about how to build a digital twin, but renew that certificate by showing me the data points that particular locality or government cares about.
Right.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I'm getting some weird feedback. You guys still good? I think digital twin for infrastructure from a short-term standpoint is going to be the Wild West. And from a long-term standpoint, every municipality is going to have their own way of doing things. The government's going to have maybe their say on how to do things. And then whoever, say, a municipality hires, if they don't do it in-house, is going to have their way of kind of generating, operating all this data. So how are we going to kind of collect all that together as a whole? How is this data going to be shared? Can it cross-reference? Because it has to be agnostic to whatever equipment, software, and kind of workflows people are doing, but at the same time be able to be read by maybe some sort of every system at the end of the day, right?
Sure.
So that those municipalities can still kind of choose what they want to, software they want to use or to read those digital twins, whether it's a Bentley, a Viva, Autodesk, or whoever's solution in the future. It doesn't matter. So I think, definitely going to need some mandates and standards, but I think for the first while, it's probably going to be a little bit of the Wild West.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting position that we're discussing digital twins in the infrastructural space, because now, we are dealing with larger bodies here, municipalities, sometimes federal projects that require this sort of effort from people such as yourselves, right? So I guess a question I would say related to that is how would you see, let's say P3 is evolving, the relationships between public-private partnerships and all the stakeholders involved there when it comes to digital twins? Yeah.
I've got experience with a P3 project recently in rail infrastructure. A couple of years ago when we, participated in one of the first P3 projects in rail in my neck of the woods. But the idea of a P3, we're thinking about integrated project delivery process and how we, we work together, share, and, it's such a beautiful idea. It's a great idea to bring it forth. But, if I revert to technology, because we are talking about digital twins and what have you, that's another scope, right? I mean, you have all the different entities coming together, and you got your engineering joint venture, you got your construction joint ventures, and then you got your operate and maintain. I think we need to learn from more experiences on P3 projects. I like the idea of integrated. The problem is that, we're all coming in with our own software, our own platforms, right? And some of the platforms are not able to integrate, certain structures or certain disciplines. And that's the key, right? Because, and then there's the notion of, well, as we know on EPCs, there's no money for R&D, right? So we're developing during, a certain project, and that's the scary part, right? And so we're actually developing, and everybody's got their own intent. But in essence, if we can continue, respect to CapEx and OpEx and build, a P3, a solid foundation, because it is the way of the future of working together, sharing the risks together, collaborating together. My last participation was actually pretty interesting because, all the different parties came in. We all learned from each other,
For sure.
And at the end, maybe the EPCs are actually competing against each other on another end. So, the idea is, how do we collaborate? And then it brings the notion of, what platform do we use? Because right now, you understand that we have a slew of platforms coming in and a slew of siloed, erroneous data, especially because of all the different. So what are we saying?
Right.
Is there any way that we can bring in a type of platform that brings it all together, as an aggregator?
Sure.
So there's many to say on P3, but I hope I've kind of just touched a couple of the idea that you were trying to reach here, Neil. But
yeah, for sure. No, let's
view.
elaborate there. I mean, Vince, can you share any examples of how Dassault systems have successfully, integrated digital twins in that regard?
Yeah, definitely. And so, in fact, one of the examples is that I'm going to bring is in my LRT experience. In fact, it was a P3 consortium, So it's about, having the teams come together, and then it's about developing. And if I look back and, as Dassault systems, we've been in manufacturing, we are in life sciences, we are in infrastructure and cities, and so we're kind of cross-functional. Okay, but if you look at a recent LRT project that I worked on, it was about integrating, just simple 3D design. The actual owner, an operator, came to us and said, the EIR specifies that we need to, develop with a single source.
Mm-hmm.
We need a twin that's going to bring everything together so that we can hand over to construction, right? And so as we all came together and, we began designing, we noticed that conceptual was only in 2D, right? Because, on a rail project, as an example, we begin with the alignment, right?
Mm.
And so the crazy part for us was, well, how do we model, and how do we bring all the different concerns together so we begin modeling, So long story short, for us, it was about, automating. We were consulting, engineering joint venture to the actual joint venture for engineering. Mm-hmm. So I had a team of almost 17 designers and developing. And then, we decided to tackle some of the issues that existed exactly on that P3 project, on that consortium was, well, some of us are doing 2D still at 30%, so how can we do 3D? The mandate was IFC. The mandate was, developing, a digital twin. And so what we did is we came together, we started, using, the capabilities that we have and, that we've been developing for many years, but we were able to really develop, all the different elements from rail, right? The elevated guideways, the piers, and bring them all into a product breakdown structure based off a work breakdown structure. At the end, we were capturing knowledge, know-how, because, we're talking about technology to in essence. And one of the greatest things that occurred to me during that time was, it's not just about civil 3D creating the alignment. It's how we, integrate, an alignment, for example, that, by the way, changes every week, as you're progressing through 30%. And so by fully automating, making changes automatically, completely changed the way we delivered that project. And today, as Naman mentioned, we're creating ecosystem twins based off that. behavioral twins, because once you got that virtual twin, it's not just about the system of systems. It's, and so the P3, that marked my, our capabilities as well as an entity. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think I guess we can elaborate as well, Bill, if you've ever seen successful integrations of the technology that you provide solutions for in an infrastructural sense. What would you say, for examples?
Yeah, and we have one similar to the Go network or the Metrolinx network, right? A few different accounts were utilizing our technology to mobile map and work on the rail systems there. Another one, we have a client mainly mapping some rural areas. So, looking for topographic surveys, digitizing those surveys, finding telecommunications, whether it's above ground, below ground, 911 networks, cell phone coverage. They're using, mobile mapping solutions for that. And there's some chatter. We haven't really gone too far, I don't think, right now. But the city of Toronto and city of Ottawa has been doing it for a little bit on mobile mapping and mapping the city itself. And there's been a chatter. I think it'd be cool to map the subway system in Toronto and digitize the entire city. I mean, that'd be pretty cool.
Of course, yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, there's lots in the works there, but the Go one would probably be the biggest one.
Okay, great. Yeah. So yeah, I think Naman is on the stream, but I think he's
I'm here.
Okay, I can hear it. Yeah. So yeah, you're just saving bandwidth here. Naman, do you have any examples that you could share?
Right, when it comes to P3s, I believe that partnership is very important because the public sector defines the vision and the might to get stuff done. And private sectors are very agile and nimble. And the best thing is for Pinnacle, we work on projects across the world. So we can pick up best practices from around the world. And when we talk to a certain public entity, we can bring that expertise and tell them, hey, this worked for this particular country. Maybe the vision you have can be tweaked in a little way like this and get it done. So, and then partnership, and then, the private sector can also make that vision a reality. And partnership that, hey, this is where this is the real we live. This is we have what we can get done. So I feel those partnerships are very important. I love working on P3s because I learned a lot about the state of the world, what governments are thinking of, and where the private sector is and where we need to be at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, great points.
Yeah. I guess another good question would be the opposite of that. So in terms of what are the main challenges that you have encountered when trying to employ digital twinning of infrastructure, or you foresee encountering when it comes to implementing this process in this sector?
I would love to start off with that. I mainly see two issues. Generally, when we get involved with digital twin projects, it's generally one particular department within the organization that has championed or sponsored the move to digital twin. So very recently, I was working on a hospital project where the facilities team kind of was on board, and they were like, hey, let's build a digital twin now. These are the missions we have. But digital twins are not built in silos. They needed help from the IT team. They needed help from the construction team. They needed help from the executive. And the sense of urgency that the facility team had was not shared with the rest of the departments. And we ran into various roadblocks just getting the cooperation of the other departments so we could integrate data, integrate systems, such that you could have a meaningful digital twin that could drive value. So, just getting everyone on board on the same page so solutions can be delivered has been one of the biggest challenges that we have faced. And second being as Vince mentioned, as Bill also mentioned, there are just so many solutions out there right now.
Right.
And if you just talk about IoT sensors, the IoT sensors might have been commissioned where they're talking about a particular asset and they use a whole set of IDs that have no relation with the asset ID or the BIM model ID. So you might be getting data from the IoT data, but you don't know what asset it's talking about, or you don't know when that asset ID, what Revit ID or BIM model that ID is talking about. So mapping those IDs together across systems is a big pain point.
I can only imagine. I mean, what you're describing is just fragmentation on different levels in different directions and sub-fragmentation subsequently, right? So it's a tall order to be in this initiative. Vince, do you have any horror stories?
So yeah, the challenges that I'm seeing is, and it's scary to say, but we have a slew of platforms on projects today. I'm going to move away from P3. I'm just going to stick to a bit of experiences that I've had on APC projects, whether it be hydro sector and even rail. We're trying to build a twin, and it's not just about clash detection, folks. Please, it's more than that, right? It's about developing a twin that's going to aggregate, all. And we need a multi-CAD integration. I agree. We've got IFC today, which is great because it enables us to talk to each other. But why are we pulling it out of systems and putting it into other systems, and thinking that we're going to get the proper data at the end, But to that point, I come from manufacturing world. I can tell you we built some hydro projects thinking of, it's tough to be native, everybody native. We've done this in the hydro world. I get it. We've got different sources coming in, but is there a way that we can have one single unified platform first and foremost, and not a bunch of different platforms saying that we're going to drive, because the data gets mixed. And, Naman, you want IoT, you're not going to get IoT, the perfect data, right? With all the data going left and right. So those are the problems I've seen. And to that extent, it's about collaboration. We're talking a lot about collaboration, but how are we removing those silos today that exist on projects today? So, having that collaboration, that's going to take us, and better understand how we're going to deliver this project to construction. And at the end, it's about delivering that as built, And so the last one I want to say, so I've mentioned a couple, but it's about, we spoke about it early on. The first question was, how do we hand over to operate and maintain? Because, we're building virtual twins here with the data. It's all been aggregated. We're making it, actionable. We want to deliver asset, because we gotta take that bridge. We got to operate that bridge for the next 100 years. We got to operate that, that concrete structure in hydro for the next 100 years, and are we just going to redesign? And I've seen that before, right? We're just redesigning. So we can stay here all day and talk.
Oh, sure. No, I think we're a great discussion, honestly. I think I wanted to leave some room for Q&A. I think we have about 5 minutes, but I don't really see any activity here in the comment section. But at the same time, we can wait for comments to come in. But we can keep talking. I mean,
Neil, can I touch on that then?
Neil, go ahead.
Can I touch on the challenges and stuff? I think also kind of what you guys were alluding to as well, but it's training, it's the expertise. If someone gets trained up in a company and they become the expert and they leave that company and go somewhere else, now you're stuck again, right?
You're stuck again.
So, how do you build them up, keep them with the team type thing and grow that entire team? So there's a lot of expertise, training. What are the solutions going to be? Like you said, there's so many out there. The adoption rate of that. I had a customer a different while back now. This is not on infrastructure, it's on the plant side of things, but hey, I would like to digitize or capture my entire plant. And I said, great, that can be done. But what are you going to do with that point cloud afterwards? And it's like, I don't know. So that point cloud now really just becomes garbage the next week when they have a new change to their plant, to their piping systems, everything else, right? So they need smart PNIDs, they need 3D models, then they need sensors, and then you need to continually update as that progresses to keep it into a digital twin world. So a lot to think about there, and it's more of a solution. It's a vision they need, and then the solution on top of that.
Yeah, no, that's great that you mentioned that, Bill, because it's an iterative process. I would say within and without. We're all learning as we go, and we'll who knows what we'll see. And really, I'd say it's a good position to be in because professionals such as yourselves and everyone on this call is are the industry leaders.
I think it's a good point, Neil. That Bill, education is got to be a constant growth for us. I mean,
sure.
For me and my team are as industry consultants. We're working hand in hand with customers, right? They're on projects, but think about it. I mean, they're going into projects. They don't have R&D and budget to develop those digital twins that we're talking about. That's the biggest issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
I come from manufacturing where they got all the funds required, and so they're constantly innovating. And so how do we myself as a consultant, I need to learn from their process because they want to develop, but they got to deliver. They got to deliver at 30, 60, on time and on budget, and they go back to old ways eventually. And so educating ourselves, for me, it's about innovating our platform as well. So if I can bring new methods to R&D, because we have the capacity of doing that, and saying, hey, we've got this on this project. And then I want to bring that back to our customers, our current customers, and say, this is how we can help you. And that's all part of the puzzle as well, right? I mean, from my experience so far.
Oh, great. Good stuff. No, it's great discussion here, guys. Did you have anything else that you'd like to mention, I guess, at the end of this discussion? I think I wanted to just cap off our panel discussion with maybe an overarching moral of the story. What would you say are the next steps here?
Start now. Start small. Fail fast.
Yeah.
My motto is always, it starts in the field, So because I've been in the surveying industry, and it always starts from square one. It always starts there.
I want to support field because, for me, supporting, digital twins, virtual twins, what we're bringing right now, so we're building that digital twin. And when I say virtual, it's about being fostered within our platform, right? The idea of, going from a virtual twin and simulating world, true conditions, behavior. I think, Lamont, you mentioned at one point, that's how I want to help field, right? It's not just about the 4D, it's about, the system of systems and how we can make them come to life. And if a change occurs, there's change management that enables us to quickly do the change. And so simulation is the next wave. I think that's how we're going to, we call it ModSim, so modeling and simulation. I think those are key factors moving forward for that virtual twin.
Yeah, Naman, you guys are right. I mean, to me, it is starting small. If you're a company and you're looking to kind of start doing this, you can't look at the big picture is A to Z,
Sure.
or A to F, but you need to go A to B as phase one, and then B to D or C for phase two, and then eventually you can get to where you got to go. But you got to start small. If it's infrastructure or it's a big plant or anything on the building side, start small, do a proof of concept, make sure it's all working to how you want, and then you can kind of roll it out. And financially, you're not drowning.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Like, if I talk about Pinnacle, our first digital twin project was one of our own office buildings. We were like, before we're going to go pitch digital twin to any of our clients, let us build the digital twin of our office, see what value we get, use the latest and greatest software, see what works for us, then talk from experience to our clients, right? So that was our definition of just starting small, start now. We ran into a lot of pitfalls. And then when we eventually started working with clients, both from infrastructure and non-infrastructure, it was just such a smoother conversation at that point. So, my biggest advice to especially consulting firms or companies, GCs trying to get into digital twin, pick up one of your offices, build a digital twin out of it. It is going to be a great learning experience.
Great. Yeah. No, that's great discussion. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And all the best.